Have you ever sat in a quiet room looking at your phone, wondering when it last rang? Not for a delivery or a reminder, but from someone just wanting to talk? Maybe you can't remember the last time someone stopped by without a reason, or maybe it's you. Maybe you're the one who turned down the last invitation, not because you didn't want to go, but because it felt complicated, tiring, a little too loud, or a little too unfamiliar. You tell yourself it's normal. You're just enjoying peace. You've earned your rest. And that's true, rest is sacred. But sometimes silence isn't restful. It's lonely. Sometimes peace turns into distance. And sometimes, without meaning to, you find yourself slowly pulling away from neighbors, from friends, from family, even from your old self. This slow fading of connection doesn't always happen in one big moment. It happens in small ways. You stop calling first. You answer with shorter words. You start to believe that maybe people are better off without the burden of checking in on you. And when no one notices that you're quieter, it only confirms the lie. I guess I don't matter as much anymore. But the truth is, you do matter, deeply. And that quiet pull away, what you've been feeling, often has reasons that go deeper than we realize. Sometimes it's sadness that hides itself. Sometimes it's fear of not belonging anymore. Sometimes it's your own body and brain shifting with age, creating invisible barriers you never saw coming. In this video, I want to gently explore with you 6 common reasons why many older adults slowly drift away from others, even when they don't want to. These reasons aren't about weakness. They aren't about failure. They are human. They are real. And they are understandable. We'll talk about subtle forms of depression, social anxiety, grief, negative memories, hormonal changes, and even the growing role of technology in making us feel left behind. And as we explore each one, we'll also look at something more important: how to come back, how to reconnect with the world around you in a way that feels safe, honest, and true to who you are now. Because no matter your age, you are still someone who deserves to be seen, heard, and included. You are not meant to disappear quietly. You are still needed. You are still loved. You still belong. So if any part of you has ever wondered, why am I drifting away? Or quietly wish someone would notice, this video is for you. Please stay until the end. You may see yourself in these stories. And more importantly, you may find the first steps back to connection, not with noise or pressure, but with grace, understanding, and the quiet courage to begin again. I know you are a person who likes to watch videos quietly. If you have not liked and subscribed to the channel, now is a good time to do it because you are a kind person. If the video is helpful, press 1. If the video is not good enough or needs improvement, press 2. Thanks everyone. Now let's get started. Number 1, subtle depression, the quiet pull away. It didn't happen all at once for Paul. There was no dramatic shift, no sudden moment when everything changed. It was gradual, so slow in fact, that even he didn't notice it at first. A missed phone call here, a skipped community lunch there. He began turning the television up louder and the lights down lower. He stopped sitting by the window in the morning like he used to. When friends called, he'd let it ring. Not because he didn't love them, he just couldn't bring himself to answer. When asked how he was doing, his answer was always the same. I'm fine, just a little tired. But deep down, even he knew that something had shifted. Something was missing, not just from his days, but from inside him. What Paul was experiencing is something far more common than most people realize. Subtle depression. It doesn't always come with heavy sadness or obvious tears. It doesn't always feel like pain. Sometimes it feels like nothing, like the absence of color in a day, like not having the energy to care, like watching life move on without you and not having the motivation to catch up. This form of depression is especially common among older adults, and yet it is so often misunderstood, or worse, completely overlooked. Why? Because it hides behind familiar phrases. I'm just slowing down. It's just part of getting older. People are busy. I don't want to bother anyone. And because there are no clear outbursts or breakdowns, family and friends often don't realize anything is wrong. But this quiet pull away from people, from hobbies, from life, is not just aging. It's a signal that the spirit is tired. It's the mind saying, I don't know where I fit anymore. And it's the heart asking, often in silence, do I still matter? There are many reasons why subtle depression can take root in later life. The loss of identity after retirement, grief that never fully healed, the absence of meaningful routine, physical changes that make even simple activities feel harder, and the hardest of all, the creeping fear that we've become invisible. But here's the truth, you are not invisible, and you are not meant to live in quiet retreat. What you're feeling is not weakness, it's human, it's real, and it is treatable. Sometimes the path back begins with something as small as sitting in the sun for 10 minutes, calling one person, telling the truth when someone asks how you're doing, or simply noticing that you feel a little disconnected and that you want to feel connected again. Paul eventually opened up to his doctor, who gently suggested he might be dealing with mild depression, not because something was wrong with him, but because his soul had been carrying too much alone. With time, a few sessions of talk therapy, and the support of a small local group, he began to feel a shift. He started answering the phone again. He found joy in playing music slowly. And most importantly, he began to feel like himself again. So let me ask you, not with judgment, but with care, have you been slowly pulling away, not because you want to, but because something inside you no longer feels like trying? If so, please don't ignore that feeling. It's not weakness. It's a quiet call for help, and it's never too late to answer. In the next part, we'll talk about another hidden barrier to connection, social anxiety, and how the fear of being misunderstood can keep us from reaching out, even when we deeply want to. Number 2, social anxiety, the fear of being misunderstood. Eleanor used to love gathering with her bridge club every Thursday. It wasn't just the game, it was the stories, the laughter, the snacks, the way everyone always remembered to ask about her garden. But over the past year, something changed. She began dreading those Thursdays. She'd get dressed, make it to the door, and then something would hold her back. What if I say something silly, she thought. What if I forget someone's name again? Slowly, she started making excuses. I'm not feeling well today. Maybe next week. The invitations kept coming, but her yeses turned into maybes and eventually into silence. Eleanor wasn't angry. She wasn't trying to isolate herself. She still cared deeply about her friends. But somewhere deep inside, she had started to fear social situations. Not because she didn't want to connect, but because she was afraid she couldn't do it right anymore. This is what social anxiety can look like in older adults. It's not about being shy. It's about feeling unsure, uncertain, out of place, as if you've forgotten how to belong. You worry that you'll talk too slowly, or forget a word, or bring up something others don't understand. You worry that people will look at you with polite patience but not really see you. So to protect yourself, you choose the safer path. You stay home. For many older adults, social anxiety isn't something they dealt with in their youth. It often emerges gradually as memory becomes a little foggier, as the pace of conversation quickens, as jokes rely on pop culture you no longer follow. The world feels like it's moving too fast, and you begin to feel like you've been left behind. And nothing is lonelier than being surrounded by people, yet feeling invisible. But let me tell you this gently. Your voice still matters. Your stories still matter. And the people who truly care about you aren't waiting for you to speak perfectly. They're just waiting for you to show up. They want you in the room. They want to hear your laugh. They want the presence that only you bring. Social anxiety whispers lies. It tells you that you're no longer relevant, no longer interesting, no longer enough in a room full of conversation. But those are not truths. They are fears. And fears can be softened, not by forcing yourself to get over it, but by taking small, brave steps forward. Start with someone safe, a grandchild, a neighbor, someone who listens well. Share how you feel, even if you don't say it perfectly. Most of the time, you'll find compassion waiting on the other side. Eleanor eventually accepted one of those Thursday invitations again. She still worried about her memory, about not being sharp enough. But she went. She brought flowers. She didn't play as well as she used to, but nobody cared. Her friends were just happy she was there. And when she got home, she cried, not from sadness, but from the warmth of being remembered, welcomed, and understood. So I ask you gently, have you been avoiding people not because you don't care, but because you're afraid of not being seen the way you once were? Please know, you are still enough, just as you are. In the next part, we'll talk about another quiet reason older adults pull away. The painful feeling of being forgotten, not just socially, but in terms of who you once were. Number 3, feeling forgotten. The pain of losing relevance. James used to be the one people came to for answers. As a mechanic for over 40 years, he knew how to fix almost anything with his hands, and even more with his patience. People trusted him. They relied on him. But after retirement, the phone stopped ringing. No one needed their car fixed anymore. And as the years passed, fewer people stopped by just to chat. His kids had families of their own, and while they loved him, their lives were busy. "We'll call soon," they'd say, and sometimes they did. But often the silence stretched longer than it used to. James didn't say anything. He didn't want to complain. But inside, something began to ache. It wasn't physical, it was emotional. A quiet ache that came from feeling like he no longer had a place in the rhythm of life around him. He stopped offering advice, stopped initiating calls. "They've got their own lives now," he told himself. "I've already lived mine." This feeling, the quiet pain of losing relevance, is something many older adults carry silently. It doesn't come from lack of love. It comes from the slow erosion of roles that once gave life meaning. When you're no longer a full-time parent, no longer working, no longer being asked for your opinion, you start to wonder, am I still needed? Do I still matter in the same way I used to? It's a deeply human question, and one that can cause people to slowly retreat from the world around them. Because when you believe you're no longer valuable, you start acting like you're invisible. You decline the invitation. You stop speaking up. You stay home, not because you want solitude, but because you're tired of feeling unnecessary. But here's what James and so many others deserve to remember. You don't stop being valuable when your roles change. You just matter differently. You may not fix cars anymore, but your stories fix hearts. Your presence calms a room. Your wisdom, gathered over decades, holds a depth that no search engine can offer. And even if no one has said it lately, you are still a part of this world's fabric, and without you, something is missing. James eventually found a new rhythm. A neighbor asked him for help assembling a lawnmower, and as they talked, James lit up again. He began mentoring a group of teenagers at the local high school's shop class. He wasn't the same man he used to be. He was something more, a guide, a keeper of knowledge, a quiet rock in a noisy world. So let me ask you with kindness, have you been pulling away? Not because you don't want to connect, but because you've started to believe the lie that you're no longer relevant? If so, please hear this. Your story isn't over, and your presence still makes a difference, more than you know. In the next part, we'll look inside the body itself and how changes in hormones and brain chemistry can quietly reshape how we relate to others, often without us realizing it. Number 4, hormonal and brain chemistry changes. Margaret was always social. She loved chatting with her neighbors, hosting Sunday dinners, and calling her sister every night just to catch up. But lately, even the thought of those simple joys felt exhausting. It wasn't that anything dramatic had happened, no argument, no major loss. She just felt flat, less curious, less excited. She'd wake up with no energy to call anyone, and when she did talk to people, she felt disconnected, like she was watching the world from behind a glass wall. Maybe I'm just getting old, she told herself, but deep down she missed the version of herself that once felt vibrant and open. What Margaret didn't realize was that what she was feeling might not be about personality at all, but about chemistry. As we age, the brain and body undergo natural changes in hormone levels and neurotransmitter activity, shifts that can quietly affect our mood, motivation, and even our desire to connect. For example, dopamine, often called the reward chemical, tends to decline with age. This can make everyday things like conversations, hobbies, or even a walk outside feel less rewarding than they used to. The brain simply doesn't give off the same spark it once did, which leads many people to believe they've lost interest in others or in life. But it's not about who you are. It's about how your brain is signaling joy. Serotonin, which helps regulate mood and social behavior, also tends to dip over time. This can lead to subtle feelings of irritability, withdrawal, or even unexplained sadness. Combine that with reduced oxytocin, the hormone linked to bonding and trust, and it's no surprise that many older adults begin to feel a quiet disconnection from the people they used to feel close to. The challenge is that these shifts don't come with flashing warning signs. They happen slowly. You don't feel bad, you just feel less excited, less open, less connected. And sadly, many people blame themselves. Why am I so distant now? Why can't I just snap out of it? But the truth is, you're not broken. You're changing. And just like our bones and muscles need different care with age, so do our emotions and minds. The good news? These changes can be supported. Light exercise, sunlight, certain foods, and even meaningful touch, a hug, a hand squeeze, can naturally boost these feel-good chemicals. Talking to a doctor or therapist can help too. And perhaps most importantly, just understanding what's happening inside your body helps lift the shame many feel. Margaret eventually spoke with her physician, who explained how common these hormonal shifts are and how treatable they can be. With a few lifestyle adjustments and a return to small social rituals she once loved, that feeling of spark began to return. Not all at once, but gently, just enough to remind her that she was still in there, waiting to feel connected again. So I gently ask you, have you felt yourself changing, emotionally pulling back? Not because of something someone said, but because something inside just feels different? Please know, there's a reason for that. And there's a path forward too, one that begins with compassion for what your body is trying to tell you. In the next part, we'll take a deeper look into the heart and explore how past emotional wounds and painful memories can quietly shape how we relate to people today, even long after the events have passed. Number 5, negative memories, emotional triggers from the past. Linda was always polite, always kind, and always the first to send a birthday card. But in the last few years, her world had grown smaller. The phone rang less often, and when it did, she hesitated before answering. Her neighbor invited her to join a small prayer group, and while Linda smiled and nodded, she always found a reason not to go. "It's not really my thing," she'd say. But the truth was deeper than that. Years ago, Linda had opened herself up in a different group, a small circle of women she thought were her friends. She had shared something personal, something vulnerable, and instead of receiving support, she was met with awkward silence. Later, she overheard her name mentioned behind closed doors, her story twisted into gossip. That moment had stayed with her, not loudly, but like a bruise that never fully faded. Since then, a quiet wall had gone up. This is how negative memories from the past can quietly shape the present. Sometimes we pull away not because of who people are now, but because of what others did back then. Maybe you were hurt in a friendship. Maybe a family member broke your trust. Maybe you opened your heart once and it was dismissed, or worse, used against you. These moments matter. They leave emotional footprints that influence how we protect ourselves, even many years later. And as we age, these memories don't always go away. They often return. The stillness of retirement, the silence of empty rooms, the slower pace of life, all can bring old wounds to the surface. Suddenly, that one time someone didn't show up, or that hurtful comment from a loved one, feels fresh again. And instead of risking a repeat, we shut down before anything begins. But here's what Linda, and so many others, are slowly learning. Not every person is like the one who hurt you. Not every moment will end the same way. Yes, pain shapes us, but healing is possible, even late in life. Linda began by writing about her story, on paper, just for herself. Then she shared it with her pastor. For the first time in years, she felt heard. not judged, just understood. From there, she started saying yes. Just a little. Yes to coffee with a neighbor. Yes to joining the prayer group, even if just to listen. And there, among gentle voices and open hearts, she found something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Not because her past disappeared, but because she realized her story was not finished. So let me ask you gently, have you been holding back, not because of what's happening now, but because of something that hurt long ago? Please know, your past explains your pain, but it doesn't have to write your future. There is still time to open the door again, slowly, softly, and on your own terms. In the next part, we'll explore a very modern reason why many older adults feel disconnected today, how technology can build bridges, but also walls when it moves faster than we're ready for. Number 6, technology barriers, feeling left behind. When George's granddaughter moved to college, she told him, "We'll video chat every week, Grandpa." He smiled, nodded, and said, "Of course." But after she left, the reality set in. George didn't know how to use Zoom. His smartphone felt more like a brick than a bridge. He tried opening the video call app, but couldn't remember his password. After a few failed attempts, he quietly set the phone down, turned off the ringer, and went back to his book. The weekly video chats never happened, not because they didn't care about each other, but because technology stood between them. For many older adults, the digital world feels more like a wall than a window. Over the past decade, birthdays have moved to Facebook, photos are shared on Instagram, and even family updates happen through group texts or quick emojis. What used to be a phone call is now a message with tiny letters. And for someone who didn't grow up with screens, it can feel overwhelming, confusing, even humiliating. Instead of asking for help, many seniors quietly step back. They don't want to feel like a burden. They don't want to feel behind. So they wait for someone to call. And when the calls don't come, they assume it's just part of being old. But here's the truth. It's not about age. It's about access. It's about support, and it's about dignity. Most seniors are more than capable of learning how to use a smartphone, a video call, or even sending a photo, if someone takes the time to show them without rushing, without judgment, and with patience. George's story didn't end in silence. One day, his neighbor's teenage son, Ben, offered to help. Together, they sat for an hour. George learned how to answer video calls, how to take photos, and even how to send a voice message. That weekend, his granddaughter got a surprise. A blurry but heartfelt selfie from Grandpa with the words, "Miss you, talk soon." She cried happy tears. And just like that, the distance between them closed. Technology should connect us, but when we're left out of it, it can do the opposite. That's why it's so important to ask for help, even if it feels awkward at first. There is no shame in learning. There is power in asking. Whether it's a family member, a neighbor, or even a free senior tech class at the library, the tools are out there, and so are the people who want to help you stay connected. So let me ask you gently, have you stopped reaching out to loved ones? Not because you don't want to connect, but because you feel lost in a world of passwords and screens? Please know, you are not behind. You are not too old. You just need someone to walk beside you until the road feels familiar. In the next and final section, we'll bring everything together and explore how even after years of drifting, it is always possible to reconnect, one small moment at a time. Number 7, the role of grief and loss. When absence builds walls. Ever since her husband passed away, Ruth stopped going to the Sunday potlucks at church. She used to love them. The stories, the laughter, the way he always refilled her cup of tea without her asking. But now sitting in that room without him felt like too much. Everyone meant well. They smiled, they invited her. But nothing they said could fill the chair beside her, so she stayed home. "I'm fine," she told people. But inside, she wasn't lonely for company. She was lonely for him. For many older adults, grief becomes the invisible wall that separates them from the world. Whether it's a spouse, a sibling, a lifelong friend, or even a pet, when someone who anchored your life is suddenly gone, the emptiness they leave behind doesn't just live in your heart. It changes your rhythm. It rewrites your days. And often it makes even simple acts like reaching out, showing up, or saying yes to an invitation feel impossible. You may begin to feel that no one understands, that people move on too quickly, that the world expects you to smile again, laugh again, be okay again, when you're still trying to make sense of the silence. In that space, it feels safer to retreat, to avoid the gatherings, to skip the calls, because showing up means facing what's missing. But here's the truth, spoken gently. Grief doesn't mean you have to live behind a wall. Yes, your life has changed. Yes, someone irreplaceable is gone, but their absence doesn't mean connection has to end. In fact, sharing your memories, your pain, and even your tears with others is one of the most powerful ways to honor the love that still lives inside you. Ruth eventually accepted a ride to church from her neighbor's daughter. She sat in the back row. She didn't talk much. But during the potluck, one woman gently placed her hand on Ruth's and said, "I still remember how your husband used to tell those jokes. I miss his voice." That moment didn't take away the grief, but it reminded Ruth that she wasn't the only one who remembered, and she wasn't alone in her missing. Loss will always be part of life, but it doesn't have to take away your right to feel connected, loved, and seen. There is space for sorrow and companionship. There is room for memory and new moments. You don't have to choose one over the other, just a little. You allow the love you lost to live on through the love you continue to give. So let me ask you gently, have you been turning away from connection? Not because you don't want to be with people, but because the people you want most are no longer here? If so, please know, you still matter to those who remain, and by letting them in the next and final part, we'll talk about the quiet path back to connection, not all at once, not with pressure, but in soft, small, steady steps. Number 8, a path back to connection, gentle steps forward. After months of saying no, Walter finally said yes to a simple cup of coffee. His neighbor Maria had invited him a dozen times, and he had politely declined every single one. But this time, for reasons even he couldn't explain, he opened the door. They sat quietly at first, just sipped, talked about the weather, looked out the window. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't deep, but for the first time in a long time, Walter felt like part of something again, even if it was just a moment shared over warm coffee. That's how reconnection begins, not with grand gestures or big speeches, but with tiny moments of courage. One phone call, one walk, one visit. The path back to others is rarely a straight line. For many older adults, it's full of hesitation, emotion, and quiet fear. Will they still want me? Will I have anything to say? Will I even recognize who I am around other people anymore? These are real questions, and they deserve gentle answers. The truth is, you don't have to go back to who you were. You don't need to rebuild every relationship at once. You don't need to be social in the way the world expects. You just need to begin with one moment of openness. One moment where you let someone in, even just a little. And from there, things can grow. Not quickly, not perfectly, but slowly, naturally, and in a way that feels safe to your heart. Maybe it's writing a letter to someone you've been thinking about. Maybe it's saying yes to a ride to the senior center, even if you're not sure what to do when you get there. Maybe it's sitting next to someone at lunch or sharing a memory from years ago. Maybe it's simply letting yourself be seen again without having all the answers. Walter didn't become the life of the party, but he started joining Maria for coffee every Tuesday. Then he helped water her plants. Then they went to the community garden together. And just like that, without trying too hard, he had re-entered the world, one kind human interaction at a time. So I ask you with all gentleness, what is one small way you could let the world back in? Not to overwhelm yourself, not to prove anything, but to remind your heart that it is still capable of warmth, connection, and being truly known. Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with being strong, it begins with simply being willing. In the conclusion, we'll reflect on everything we've uncovered and remind you that you were never meant to walk this journey alone. If you've made it to this point in the video, take a deep breath and take a moment to honor yourself. Because looking at these reasons Reflecting on the quiet ways we pull away from others isn't easy. It takes courage, it takes honesty, and it takes heart. Whether it was subtle depression, anxiety, the loss of someone you love, the fast pace of technology, or memories that still ache after all these years, you now know something very important. There is a reason you felt more distant, and that reason is not weakness, it is human. Sometimes life moves in such a way that we don't even notice we're drifting. We think we're just tired. We tell ourselves we're fine. We get used to the silence, the stillness, the comfort of not having to try. But inside, a part of us still hopes for a knock at the door, a familiar voice on the phone, a moment where we feel seen again, not out of pity, but out of love. And I want you to know, it's not too late. Not too late to reach out. Not too late to start small. Not too late to be remembered, reconnected, and revalued for the full, beautiful life you've lived and are still living. You don't have to become someone new. You don't have to go back to the way things were. You just have to be open to this truth. You were never meant to walk through this life alone. There are people who still need to hear your stories, people who still light up when you walk into the room, people who would be lucky to know you, not the perfect you, not the used to be you, but the real you, right now, today. So wherever you are, however long it's been since you last reached out, I hope you know this. You still matter. You are still loved. And connection is always waiting, just one gentle step at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video touched something in your heart, I hope you'll pass it along to someone else who might be quietly drifting and just needs a reason to come back. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and haven't yet liked and subscribed, now is the perfect time to do so. It really helps our channel grow and reach more people who need this kind of helpful content. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll always know when a new video is up. Your support truly means the world to us. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.